Entertainment headlines this week from the Kelly Clarkson Show ending to Sherri Shepherd's show being canceled.
She says it's for personal reasons. She needs to focus on her kids. She's been saying this for about 2 years now.
There are moments in television when a door quietly closes before anyone realizes it was even slightly open. Not every ending announces itself. Not every farewell comes wrapped in drama or public spectacle. Some of the most significant departures in entertainment history have arrived the same way, quietly, almost gently, in the middle of what looked from the outside like everything going right. And the absence of an obvious explanation is often what makes those moments so difficult to process. Because when something ends without a crisis to point to, without a visible reason to hold up and examine, the mind searches harder. It asks more questions. It looks deeper. And sometimes, when it finally finds a truth, that truth turns out to be something far more personal and far more real than anything the industry gossip could have predicted. Most of the time, those moments come wrapped in warning signs, declining ratings, public disputes, network cancellations. The story usually tells itself before the announcement ever arrives. But every so often, a farewell arrives without any of those signals, and the silence around it becomes louder than anything that could have been said. That is exactly what happened when Kelly Clarkson stepped in front of the world and announced that one of the most decorated daytime talk shows in recent memory would be coming to an end. Not because of failure, not because of controversy, but because of something far more human, far more raw, and far more difficult to measure than any ratings report could capture. And the closer people looked at the full picture of what she had been quietly carrying, the more the story transformed from a celebrity headline into something most people recognized from their own lives. This is that story. When Kelly Clarkson first launched her daytime talk show back in September 2019, nobody was entirely sure what to expect. She was already one of the most beloved voices in American music history, the original American Idol winner who had turned a television competition into a genuine multi-decade career. But daytime television was a different world entirely. It demanded consistency, warmth, spontaneity, and the ability to connect with an audience across thousands of episodes without ever appearing tired or rehearsed. What unfolded over the next 7 years surprised even the most optimistic observers. The Kelly Clarkson Show did not simply survive, it thrived. It earned widespread praise for its energy, its humor, and its host's genuine ability to make guests and viewers alike feel like they were sitting in a living room with someone they had known for years. The accolades followed. The show accumulated an extraordinary 24 Daytime Emmy Awards over its run, including 4 wins for Outstanding Daytime Talk Series, a level of industry recognition that placed it among the most celebrated programs of its kind. By any conventional standard, the show was operating at the height of its powers. Its audience remained loyal, its cultural footprint continued to grow, and there was every reason to believe the future was secure. That is precisely why the announcement that landed on February 2, 2026, hit so many people with such unexpected force. In a statement shared on her Instagram account, Clarkson confirmed that the current 7th season would be the final one, with new episodes continuing to air through fall 2026 before the show closed its doors for good. The words were gracious and warm, filled with gratitude for the crew, the network, and the fans who had shown up for 7 incredible years. But beneath the warmth was an acknowledgement that something had fundamentally changed, and that what once felt possible no longer did in the same way. The immediate reaction from audiences was a mixture of sadness and genuine confusion. In an industry where shows rarely end from a position of strength, the idea that a host would voluntarily walk away from something so successful seemed almost counterintuitive. People searched for the hidden explanation, the behind-the-scenes conflict, the contract dispute, the creative friction that usually explains these decisions. But the more they searched, the more they found something that did not fit any of those familiar templates. Because the reason Kelly Clarkson was saying goodbye was not rooted in the television industry at all. It was rooted in the kind of personal reality that does not appear on ratings charts or Emmy shortlists. To understand the full weight of what Clarkson announced that February, you have to go back several months earlier to a devastating development that she had been keeping as private as possible. Brandon Blackstock, her former husband and the father of her 2 children, had been quietly battling melanoma for more than 3 years. The diagnosis had never been made public during that time, and Clarkson had done everything she could to shield her children from the full force of what was unfolding. The first public indication that something serious was happening came in the summer of 2025, when she posted on Instagram to announce she was postponing the remaining dates of her Las Vegas residency. The message was careful and restrained, but the meaning was clear. "While I normally keep my personal life private," she wrote, "this past year, my children's father has been ill, and at this moment, I need to be fully present for them." Days later, on August 7, 2025, Brandon Blackstock passed away peacefully at his home in Butte, Montana, surrounded by family. He was 48 years old. The Silver Bow County coroner confirmed that his cause of death was melanoma, a form of skin cancer. His family's statement described a man who had fought bravely for years and asked only for privacy during an unspeakable time. The grief that followed was real and immediate. Clarkson largely stepped away from public view in the weeks that came after, staying offline and keeping herself close to River Rose and Remington, her daughter and son. It was not until September 4th that she broke her social media silence, and even then, it was not to speak about the loss directly. Instead, she marked the 23rd anniversary of her American Idol win with a quiet, emotional message of gratitude to the fans who had supported her since the very beginning. She returned to the Kelly Clarkson Show in late September, opening an episode with a cover performance that reminded everyone watching exactly who she was and exactly what she was capable of. But those who paid close attention noticed something had shifted. The context surrounding her presence had changed. The woman behind the microphone was no longer simply a television host managing a busy schedule. She was a solo parent who had just navigated one of the most painful experiences a person can face, and who was now looking at everything around her through a fundamentally different lens. That shift in perspective is what ultimately drove the February announcement. When Clarkson appeared on NBC's Today Show on February 20th to speak further about her decision, she was honest in a way that cut straight through any remaining speculation. "I think everybody probably gets the timing," she said simply. "Our family life, the dynamic changed a bit, and it has changed for a minute now." She described how the experience of losing someone had changed the way she thought about time itself, about the precious and irretrievable nature of moments with her children. "You've got kids, we've all got kids, right?" she continued. "It's one of those things when you kind of start seeing life as how precious it is, too." Those words were not the words of someone reacting impulsively. They were the words of someone who had been sitting with a profound realization for months and had finally made peace with what it required of her. Speaking on SiriusXM's The Morning Mashup, she offered perhaps the most direct summary of her thinking. "My first thought is as a mom, obviously, so that was basically why the decision was made," she explained. 7 years, that's a long time. My kids have grown up in that. River Rose is 11 years old. Remington, known to family and fans as Remy, is 9. They are at ages when presence matters in ways that cannot be compensated for by wealth or fame or professional achievement. They had already been through something no child should have to experience. Their mother understood that, and she made her choice accordingly. What made the decision even more emotionally complex was the impact it carried for everyone else involved. Clarkson was openly candid about the fact that walking away from a successful show meant disrupting the livelihoods and daily rhythms of the people who had helped build it alongside her. "The crew's been incredible," she acknowledged during her Hollywood Reporter interview. "It wasn't that the show wasn't doing well. That's what kind of sucked. It was like everything was going well. That's what was really hard. It was people's jobs. We are family there as well, so that was a really hard thing for me, but an easy decision as a mama. But it's a big deal for our team." That tension, between a choice that was easy as a mother and hard as a colleague, speaks to the kind of person she has always been. The show was never just a platform. It was a community of talented, hard-working people who had given years of their professional lives to making it what it became, and she felt the weight of that reality even as she made the only choice she could live with. Sources close to Clarkson painted a fuller picture of what the daily demands of the show had quietly cost her over the years. One insider told Us Weekly that the experience had become far more consuming than she ever anticipated at the outset. Kelly didn't realize how all-consuming the show would be, the source explained. "It's her entire life." Another added, "The talk show became more than she initially bargained for, and left her with little time to pursue anything else." Even a year before the announcement, during a May 2025 concert in Atlantic City, Clarkson herself had touched on this reality while speaking to her audience. "We haven't done a show in a while, because I have a talk show," she said from the stage. "It's like a whole other job. We are bummed because we love doing shows, and it's hard to fit it in." That offhand comment now reads like a quiet signal of what was already building beneath the surface, a growing recognition that the pace she had maintained for years was not something she could sustain indefinitely, while also being the parent her children needed her to be. NBC Universal, the network that produced and distributed the show, confirmed publicly that the series would not continue with a new host. The Kelly Clarkson Show was built around one personality, and without her, there was nothing to rebuild it around. The decision was final. 7 seasons, more than 1,000 episodes, 24 Daytime Emmy Awards, and millions of daily viewers across the country, all of it coming to a close not because it ran out of steam, but because the woman at its center chose something more important. That is not a common story in the entertainment industry. It is a human one. For the many people who had made the show a part of their daily routine, the farewell carried a particular emotional quality. It did not feel like a cancellation. It felt like watching someone you admire make a sacrifice and knowing, somewhere deep down, that they made the right call. Clarkson herself seemed to understand this. In her February statement, she offered fans the reassurance that this was not a disappearance. "This isn't goodbye," she wrote. "I'll still be making music, playing shows here and there, and you may catch me on The Voice from time to time. You never know where I might show up next." True to her word, she returned to The Voice as a coach for the show's 29th season, titled Battle of Champions, which premiered on February 23, 2026, just weeks after her announcement. Her Las Vegas residency at the Coliseum at Caesars Palace also continued, with additional 2026 dates announced and tickets going on sale. She was not retreating. She was redirecting. A source close to her described the next chapter in terms that felt genuinely balanced. After years of an intense daily schedule, she's excited to move at a different pace and have more flexibility to spend time with her kids without the structure of a daily show, the source told People. This change gives her the space to be more present at home while still doing the creative work she loves. Kelly still wants to make music and perform, and she's open to popping up on projects she enjoys, but nothing that requires an ongoing daily grind. For her, this next phase is about balance. That word, balance, feels like the center of everything. Not retirement, not withdrawal, balance. The kind that had become impossible to achieve while taping a daily television program and simultaneously parenting 2 children who had just lost their father. There is something worth sitting with in the broader shape of this story. Kelly Clarkson built something extraordinary over 7 years. She walked into a space where many music stars had tried and stumbled, and she made it look natural. She won over an audience that could have been skeptical and kept them coming back season after season with a combination of honesty, humor, and musical talent that never felt manufactured. She earned every single one of those 24 Emmy Awards through relentless preparation and genuine connection with the people she sat across from every single day. And then, when the moment came that required her to choose between that achievement and her children, she chose her children without hesitation. She called it an easy decision as a mother, even while acknowledging how hard it was as a professional. That combination, clarity and grief coexisting in the same moment, is what makes this story feel true in a way that most celebrity narratives do not. The final episodes of The Kelly Clarkson Show will air in the fall of 2026, and when the last one concludes, an era in daytime television will close quietly and with dignity. There will be no dramatic curtain call, no manufactured finale controversy, no mystery about why it ended. The reason has been stated plainly, in Clarkson's own words, across multiple interviews and public statements. She needed to be present for her kids during a time when presence was the only thing that mattered. She looked at everything she had built and decided that none of it was worth more than that. And in choosing to walk away from the biggest professional chapter of her adult life in order to be fully available to her children, she did something that most people in her position rarely do. She let the work wait. She chose the life. Whatever she does next, whether it is another album, more voice coaching appearances, continued residency performances, or something nobody has thought of yet, it will be the work of someone who has already answered the most important question about what truly matters to her. And that, perhaps more than any award or milestone, is the most defining thing she has ever done. What often gets overlooked in conversations about Clarkson's departure is the sheer scope of what she was managing on a daily basis before any of the personal tragedies entered the picture. Running a daily television talk show is not the kind of job that ends when the cameras stop rolling. It is a constant machine that requires pre-production meetings, guest bookings, script reviews, wardrobe fittings, musical rehearsals, production planning, and the kind of logistical coordination that fills every available hour before and after what the audience actually sees on screen. Clarkson was not just the face of the show. She was deeply involved in the creative process, in the music segments that became one of its most beloved features, and in the general tone that made it feel genuinely different from everything else airing at the same time. Maintaining that at a high level, day after day, for 7 years, required a level of sustained energy that most people never fully appreciate when watching from their living rooms. Even before the most difficult chapters arrived in her personal life, there were signs that Clarkson was feeling the weight of that schedule. During a concert in Atlantic City in May 2025, months before the news about Brandon Blackstock's illness became public, she opened up from the stage about what hosting the show had cost her in terms of her live performance career. The talk show schedule had made touring almost impossible to fit in, she admitted to the crowd, and there was a genuine wistfulness in the way she said it. She had always been a performer first. Someone who felt most alive when she was on a stage with a live audience, and the demands of daily television had quietly crowded out that part of herself. It was a small comment, a moment of honest reflection shared with a room full of fans who probably did not realize at the time how significant it would turn out to be. Looking back, it now reads as one of the early signals that something had to give. The private nature of Blackstock's cancer battle meant that the public was largely unaware of what Clarkson had been carrying for years. She had continued hosting her show through the 2024 to 2025 season, had launched a Las Vegas residency, and had maintained the public face of someone managing a full professional life. Behind that was a reality far more demanding. She knew her children's father was seriously ill. She knew her children were aware that something was wrong, even if they could not fully understand it. She knew that the time available to allow her kids to be near both their parents, even in separated circumstances, was limited in ways that nobody wants to confront. That knowledge lives in a person differently than ordinary stress or professional pressure. It shapes the way you look at your calendar. It changes what feels urgent and what feels trivial. And over time, it begins to quietly reorder everything. When Blackstock passed away on August 7, 2025, the grief was not only Clarkson's. River Rose was 11. Remington was 9. They had lost their father at ages when children are just beginning to understand the world and their place in it, when a parent's presence still forms the architecture of daily life. Reba McEntire, Blackstock's stepmother and one of country music's most enduring figures, spoke at the 2025 Emmy Awards in September about how the entire family was still processing the loss. "We miss him," she said simply. "We miss him every minute." The Blackstock children, including Savannah and Seth from his earlier relationship, had come together to support one another, but the pain was fresh and the adjustment enormous. For Clarkson, returning to work in late September and opening the new season of her talk show required a kind of professional strength that most people will never be asked to demonstrate. She did it anyway, but she did it knowing that something had to change. What the announcement on February 2nd represented, then, was not a sudden decision made in the heat of grief. It was the end point of a long internal reckoning that had been building for months, possibly longer. When she wrote in her Instagram statement that stepping away from the daily schedule will allow me to prioritize my kids, which feels necessary and right for this next chapter of our lives, those words were not chosen hastily. They were the result of someone who had been sitting with that sentence for a long time, turning it over, testing it against her conscience, and eventually accepting that it was the most honest thing she could say. The phrase "feels necessary and right" is particularly striking because it does not try to make the decision sound easy or clean. It acknowledges the necessity without erasing the difficulty. As the final episodes move toward their full 2026 conclusion, what lingers most is not the loss of a television program, but the recognition of a set of values being acted upon in public. Kelly Clarkson has spent her entire adult career performing for other people, in arenas, on television screens, through album after album of songs that said what many people felt but could not find the words for. She has given an enormous amount of herself to an enormous number of strangers who loved her for it. And when the moment came that required her to turn that same generosity inward, toward two children who needed their mother more than her audience needed another season, she did not hesitate. She said the quiet, unglamorous, profoundly meaningful thing, that her kids came first. Always. Without apology. Without theater. Just a statement of priorities that cuts through everything else with remarkable clarity. Whatever chapters come next, the story of how this one concluded will remain one of the most defining things about who Kelly Clarkson actually is. Not the awards. Not the ratings. Not the viral moments or the celebrity guest list. What will be remembered is that when life asked her to choose between an extraordinary professional achievement and the irreplaceable daily experience of being there for her children, she chose her children. And she did it clearly, publicly, and without pretending it was anything other than what it was. In a world that often rewards performance over presence and visibility over depth, that kind of choice has a quiet power that no award could fully measure. The goodbye is real, and it matters, but so does everything it reveals about the person saying it.